Imagine being 12 years old, clutching a faded scarf that smells like your late mother, while the woman your father married smiles at the world but turns into a monster the moment the front door closes. Before we go further into this emotional story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Now, let's step into the compound of Mr. Adewale and see how the truth finally came to light. Mr. Adewale was a man who loved deeply, but his grief had left a blind spot in his heart. After losing his first wife, the mother of his child, he felt a heaviness in the home that he couldn't shake. He watched his daughter, Dara, grow quieter every day, retreating into a shell. She was only 12, but she carried the weight of an adult's sadness. When Mr. Adewale met Madam Ronke, he thought he had found the solution. Ronke was beautiful, with a voice as smooth as honey and a smile that seemed to promise peace. She cooked his favorite meals, she spoke softly to Dara in his presence, and she promised to be the mother figure the house so desperately needed. Mr. Adewale believed her because he wanted to. He was desperate for his daughter to be happy again. He didn't see the coldness in Ronke's eyes when he wasn't looking. He didn't notice that her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when she looked at Dara. He married her, hoping to rebuild his family. But the moment his car drove out of the compound for his business trips, the mask fell off. Ronke revealed her true face, and it was uglier than anyone could have imagined. The change wasn't gradual, it was instant. The very first day Mr. Adewale traveled, Ronke stopped pretending. She found Dara sitting in the living room and yelled at her for breathing too loudly. She told the young girl that she was useless and a burden. She forced Dara to get on her knees and scrub the concrete floors until her hands were raw. Food became a weapon. If Dara didn't finish her chores fast enough, Ronke would send her to bed with an empty stomach, while the smell of stew filled the house, taunting the hungry child. Dara was terrified. She was a gentle soul, raised with love, and she didn't know how to handle this cruelty. She would cry silently into her mother's scarf at night, praying for her father to come home. But even when he did, she was too scared to speak. Ronke had threatened her, whispering that if she told her father anything, he would abandon her completely. So, Dara kept quiet, suffering in a silence that was slowly destroying her. The neighbors in the compound heard things. Walls in the neighborhood were thin, and voices carried. They heard the shouting. They saw Dara looking thinner, her eyes hollow. They shook their heads sadly as they passed by the gate, whispering to each other about the wicked stepmother. But nobody intervened. In their minds, it was a family matter, and they didn't want to cross Mr. Adewale, who seemed so happy with his new wife. Everyone knew the truth, except the man who mattered most. Then came the day that shifted the balance of power. Sewa arrived. Sewa was Mr. Adewale's niece, sent to stay with them for the holidays. She was 13 years old, just a year older than Dara, but she was cut from a different cloth. Sewa was sharp-mouthed, bold, and absolutely fearless. She had grown up in a busy market town where you had to be tough to survive. She didn't lower her gaze when adults spoke to her, and she had a sense of justice that was fierce. From the moment Sewa dropped her bags in the guest room, she sensed the tension. She looked at Dara and saw a victim. She looked at Ronke and saw a bully. Ronke tried to establish dominance immediately. She shouted at Sewa to take her bags to the back and fetch water. But Sewa didn't flinch. She looked Ronke in the eye and said,
"I am a guest here, not a house girl, not a house girl."
When Ronke tried to intimidate her, Sewa folded her arms and said, "Auntie, I'm not Dara. Try it and see." Ronke hated her instantly. She wasn't used to children talking back. She was used to Dara's trembling submission. But what Ronke didn't know was that Sewa was watching her like a hawk. Sewa had already heard the whispers from the neighbors. On her way into the compound, a woman selling peppers at the gate had pulled her aside and hinted that she should look after her cousin. Sewa came prepared. She wasn't just there to visit, she was there to investigate. One hot afternoon, the sun was beating down on the compound, and the air was still. Sewa decided it was time to test the waters. She intentionally dropped a plastic cup on the kitchen floor. It made a loud clatter. She did it just to see Ronke's reaction. As expected, Ronke came rushing in, her face twisted in rage. She didn't ask what happened, she just started screaming insults. She grabbed Dara, who was standing nearby, and shook her roughly, blaming her for the noise. But Sewa was one step ahead. Before she dropped the cup, she had placed her phone behind a flower vase on the center table. The camera was rolling, capturing the entire living room and kitchen entrance. As Ronke screamed, Sewa stood there, calm and collected. The more angry Ronke got, the calmer and more disrespectful Sewa became. She knew exactly which buttons to push to make Ronke lose control completely. Sewa looked at the woman and said, "Auntie, why not beat me the way you beat Dara? Or is it only small children you can fight?" Ronke's eyes almost popped out of her head. She couldn't believe the audacity. She screamed, "You little witch. I will show you who owns this house." Sewa just smirked and replied, "You think nobody knows what you do? Even the neighbors talk about you. They know you starve her." Every time Sewa spoke, Ronke exposed another piece of her wickedness. She shouted about how she hated Dara, how she only married Mr. Adewale for his money, and how she wished Dara would just disappear. She admitted everything, thinking she was just yelling at two helpless children. She had no idea that the small black circle of the phone camera lens was recording every slap, every insult, and every confession. Sewa didn't stop there. Over the next few days, she gathered more evidence. She recorded Ronke calling Dara worthless. She recorded the sound of Ronke withholding food. She even spoke to the neighbors through the back fence, recording their voice notes where they confirmed that they often heard Dara crying late at night. Sewa was building a case, not like a child, but like a lawyer. The stepmother tried to treat Sewa the same way she treated Dara. She raised her hand to slap Sewa one evening. But Sewa didn't cower. She stood tall, grabbed Ronke's wrist midair, and looked her dead in the eye. Sewa said, quietly but dangerously, "If you touch me, your life will scatter today." Ronke backed down. For the first time in her life, she was afraid of a child. She saw a fire in Sewa's eyes that terrified her. But Ronke's final downfall came unexpectedly. She thought she still had the upper hand because Mr. Adewale was away. But Mr. Adewale had finished his business early and was on his way home a day ahead of schedule. That morning, the compound was tense. Dara had accidentally spilled water on the rug. It was a simple mistake. But Ronke was in a foul mood. She slapped Dara so hard the sound echoed across the compound. It was a sharp, cracking sound that made the birds fly off the roof. Dara fell to the floor, weeping. Unfortunately for Ronke, and luckily for the girls, that was the exact moment Mr. Adewale's car rolled into the compound. He had turned off the engine to surprise them, so the house was quiet. He heard the slap. He heard Dara's cry. He rushed to the door, his heart pounding. Ronke froze. She heard footsteps. She quickly tried to compose herself, ready to switch into her fake tears, ready to lie and say Dara had fallen. But before she could open her mouth, Sewa pushed forward. She didn't give Ronke a single second to manipulate the situation. Sewa stepped in front of Mr. Adewale, holding her phone. She said, firmly, "Uncle, come and see your wife. I have everything on video." She didn't wait for him to ask questions. She connected her phone to the large TV in the living room. Mr. Adewale stood there, his bag slipping from his hand. He watched the screen. He saw the video Sewa had recorded days ago. He heard the insults. He saw Ronke admitting she hated Dara. He saw the physical aggression. Then, Sewa played the voice notes from the neighbors. The neighbors, hearing the commotion and seeing Mr. Adewale's car, had gathered at the open door. They nodded their heads, confirming everything. "It is true, sir," one of them said. "We hear it every day." Ronke's face collapsed. The color drained from her skin. The man she had deceived for months finally saw her true nature. There was nowhere to hide. Her lies couldn't save her against the undeniable proof on the screen. Mr. Adewale turned to look at her. He was shaking, not with fear, but with terrible anger. He looked at Dara, who was still on the floor holding her cheek, and his heart broke into 1,000 pieces. He looked at Ronke and said, in a voice that was dangerously low,
"Get out!"
Ronke tried to beg. "My husband, it's the devil. I said get out of my house." Mr. Adewale roared, pointing at the gate. "Don't take anything that I bought for you. Just go." Ronke scrambled. She ran to the room, grabbed her old bag, and rushed out the door. She was humiliated. The neighbors watched her leave, silence following her walk of shame. As her bag dropped to the ground near the gate, she paused, looking back. Sewa was standing on the veranda. Sewa whispered loud enough for her to hear,
Next time, pick someone your own size.
For the first time, the wicked stepmother met a child she couldn't bully, and she lost completely. Mr. Adewale rushed to Dara, scooping her up in his arms. He wept, apologizing over and over again for not seeing the truth, for leaving her unprotected. He promised her that no one would ever hurt her again. And this time, Dara believed him. She looked at Sewa, her cousin, her protector, and managed a small, weak smile. It took time, but the laughter returned to Mr. Adewale's house. 6 months later, you wouldn't recognize the place. Dara was gaining weight, her skin was glowing, and the scarf was no longer a security blanket she clung to in fear, but a cherished memory she kept in her drawer. Sewa visited often, and the bond between the two cousins was unbreakable. This story is a powerful reminder that evil thrives when good people are silent. Before we go, I want you to verify one thing in your own life. Are you paying close enough attention to the people you love? Sometimes the signs are there, but we are too distracted to see them. If this story touched you, please like the video and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. Thanks for watching, stay blessed.